Meredith Waters, who's come from the United States of America to share her reflections on the paper with us this morning. Meredith is currently pursuing her Bachelor's of Science in Public Health at George Washington University and is joining us today because of her role as a member of the International Youth Leadership Council at Advocates for Youth, through which she's been involved in a wide range of leadership and advocacy opportunities, ranging from organising campus events, bringing awareness to need for greater investment globally in international reproductive health, through to educating US policymakers, to speaking events in terms of the 44th session of the Commission of Population and Development. We very much welcome your thoughts to be shared with us today.
Good morning, everyone. We are a part of the largest generation of young people in human history. The decisions we make today will affect the planet for generations to come, and it is evident that if we have the information, skills, and services to succeed, we will. But we cannot and should not do it alone. UN agencies, governments, donors, and civil society partners must acknowledge the vital role that we as youth play in leading efforts in our schools, communities, countries, and around the world. We have clearly come a long way since the first International Conference of Population and Development nearly 20 years ago, but there is much progress left to make, and I would like to thank the UN for supporting this conference and development of youth across the globe. While the Staying Healthy thematic paper rightfully acknowledges some of the challenges that young people face to staying healthy, including those related to sexual and reproductive health, violence, injuries, mental illness, and non-communicable diseases, there are several additional points I would like to make which are crucial in addressing the holistic needs of young people. First, as a young person studying public health, I was surprised to see a paper on staying healthy framed in such a negative manner. Staying healthy isn't merely the absence of disease and ill health, as the paper seems to suggest. And it's certainly not about blaming young people for decisions deemed by others to be poorly made. Staying healthy is about the promotion of healthy living and positive youth development. In order to achieve this goal, we must address the underlying social determinants of health, including poverty, violence, stigma and discrimination, gender inequality, early and forced marriage, racism, ageism, and legal barriers which restrict our access to information and services that we need in order to stay healthy. Second, as an advocate for sexual and reproductive health and rights, I was pleased to see the emphasis on young people's sexual and reproductive health and rights, particularly given the centrality of these rights in the ICPD program of action. This year, CPD focused particularly on adolescents and youth, including affirming their sexual and reproductive health and rights, which are vital because they underpin all other aspects of health and are often the most neglected in these discussions. A holistic approach is necessary to staying healthy, and many determinants of health manifest themselves first and foremost in sexual and reproductive health and rights, whether it's gender inequality or sexual violence or early or forced marriage or other harmful traditional practices. At the same time, we must also recognize these determinants impact the full range of young people's health needs, including obesity, tobacco, physical activity, and other non-communicable diseases. Third, the paper rightfully calls for including young people in designing, implementing, and evaluating health information and services, and specifically states that those who make decisions have to open their doors to youth, provide them with full and accurate and timely information and materials on the issues being decided, and assist them in developing skills and experience in policy and program analysis, as well as in advocacy and negotiation. This form is one step in the right direction. However, we can and we must do better. it is critical that the input of youth is gathered here in both the in-person and virtual discussions. Being given the opportunity to respond to this today is very significant, but I have a dream that one day young people will be asked to write these reports themselves rather than merely comment on something written by others. We as young people are scholars of our own experience and experts because we are the ones living in today's reality of young people, a reality that looks vastly different from what our parents and grandparents experience. It is essential that we are given the space to speak for ourselves. I would like to leave you with 5 recommendations. First, national laws and policies must reflect international obligations and provide young people with an enabling environment for addressing their concerns. Second, health information and services need to be youth-friendly, high-quality, accessible, and affordable, and include the provision of comprehensive sexuality education. Health educators also have to be properly trained to ensure that information and services are delivered in a non-judgmental way, free of discrimination, coercion, violence, and with ample protections for privacy, informed consent, and confidentiality. Third, we must expect that all young people, regardless of gender, HIV status, education level, and social and marital status. Additionally, differently abled youth, including ethnic and religious minorities, migrant youth, pregnant and parenting youth, and lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people need to be prioritized. Fourth, governments must promote gender sensitivity and non-discrimination in laws, policies, and services, as well as within private sector through partnerships with the media. I am mindful of the fact that within my lifetime, Hillary Clinton went to Beijing as the First Lady of the United States and declared what was then an aspirational statement, but is now the bedrock of a movement. Human rights are women's rights, and women's rights are human rights, once and for all. This also definitely applies to youth. Finally, and most importantly, young people must be fully and meaningfully engaged, accepted, and respected as equal partners in the development of our local, national, and global communities. This includes meaningful interactions at every level of decision-making, from design to implementation to evaluation, in all policies and programs, not just when it's convenient or politically correct to do so. Young people are remarkable leaders who need to be valued and respected for their contributions, including the recommendations we make this week at the first ever Global Youth Forum. Young people's rights need to be fulfilled in order for us to be healthy and stay healthy.
Many thanks, Meredith. We're running short on time, and Meredith, I had thought that I would address a single question to each of our presenters, but Meredith has done the best job of all by preempting the question that I was going to ask her, which was going to be, so what are your priorities that in the World Cafe that's going to follow, you are going to be bringing to the table? So I think we will really take that, and I would urge you to make sure you're in one of those cafes so that those 5 eloquent points and important points you raised are shared with us. I'd also be making an invitation to those on the Twitter feed to use the hashtag ICPDYouth to post any of your comments or questions. But my question to start with is to Laura, and there are microphones in front of you that I would urge you to be using just on the little table. My question is, we know what we need to be doing